For decades, military power meant bigger ships, thicker armour, and deeper stockpiles.
But what happens when all of that stops mattering?
In this war, dominance isn't collapsing at the front lines.
It's unraveling in boardrooms, insurance markets, and command centres, where risk suddenly becomes impossible to calculate.
A state built on forced projection is discovering that fear no longer travels in straight lines.
And once deterrence breaks, the fallout doesn't stay military, it spreads everywhere. If the land war has become a grim calculus of attrition, the naval war has evolved into something entirely different, a systematic dismantling of Russia's ability to project power from its own coastline.
By early 2026, the Black Sea Fleet,
once the pride of Moscow's southern strategy, it had effectively ceased to function as a cohesive fighting force.
it was reduced to hiding in distant ports that were no longer safe.
Satellite imagery analysis from January 2026 confirmed that the bulk of Russia's remaining surface combatants had abandoned not just Sevastopol, but increasingly Novorossiysk as well, scattering south toward the smaller, less capable base at Ochimcha in occupied Georgia.
This retreat was not a strategic redeployment.
It was a desperate flight from a Ukrainian unmanned fleet that had fundamentally rewritten the rules of maritime engagement.
At the heart sits the latest Sea Baby drone.
It has outgrown its origins as a simple kamikaze vessel. Ukrainian security officials revealed this in late 2025. The newest iterations now possess a range of 1,500 kilometers. They carry payloads exceeding 2,000 kilograms for long strikes.
This allows attacks on targets across the Black Sea basin.
More critically, these systems are no longer single-use weapons. They are reusable, multi-role platforms built for varied missions. They are equipped with R-73 air-to-air missiles. They feature sophisticated friend or foe identification systems powered by artificial intelligence. This evolution changed the balance against Russian helicopter hunters. Those helicopters once hunted Ukrainian naval drones with impunity.
Now they face lethal surface-to-air threats from the boats.
They were trying to destroy those very boats. The psychological turning point for the Russian Navy came in December 2025, when a Ukrainian underwater drone penetrated the multi-layered defenses of Novorossiysk harbor. The strike targeted a Kilo-class submarine berthed at what Russian commanders had considered their safest remaining pier, causing critical damage that kept the vessel from submerging or deploying.
For the Kremlin, the implications were catastrophic.
If a submarine could be hit while docked in Russia's primary energy port, some 600 kilometers from Ukrainian-held shores, then no hull in the entire Black Sea was truly secure. Naval analysts noted that following this attack, Russian sortie rates dropped to near zero, effectively ceding control of the western and central Black Sea to Ukrainian commercial shipping.
This naval victory had immediate and profound economic consequences.
It secured the grain corridor that Russia spent 2 years trying to strangle. By January 2026, commercial traffic to and from Ukraine's Greater Odessa ports had returned to near pre-war levels, protected not by Western warships, but by the deterrent threat of Ukrainian drones. International insurers, who had previously spiked premiums for vessels entering the war zone, began to lower rates as it became clear that the Russian Navy was too paralyzed to enforce a blockade.
In a supreme irony, while Ukrainian grain flowed out to global markets,
Russian oil tankers departing Novorossiysk found themselves navigating a gauntlet of risk, facing higher insurance costs and the constant threat of being caught in the crossfire of drone attacks on port infrastructure.
the war against Russia's economy extended well beyond the sea lines,
striking deep into the country's energy heartland with a precision that Moscow could not mask. Throughout November and December 2025, Ukrainian long-range aerial drones executed a record number of strikes against Russian oil refineries, hitting facilities as far away as the Volga River and the Ural Mountains. These were not random acts of harassment, they were carefully planned operations targeting the specific distillation towers and cracking units that are most difficult and expensive to replace. The cumulative damage was staggering. Independent energy monitors estimated that by January 2026, Russia's oil refining capacity had been reduced by roughly 30 to 40%, forcing the world's second largest oil exporter to ban gasoline exports and begin importing fuel.
For the average Russian citizen, the reality of the war arrived at the gas pump long before it appeared on the television news.
Shortages of high-grade fuel reported in southern Russian regions during the 2025 harvest season spread to major cities by early 2026, driving prices up and fueling inflation that the central bank could no longer control. Reports surfaced in January that Moscow had quietly signed agreements to import gasoline from Belarus and Kazakhstan to prevent domestic unrest, a humiliation for a regime that built its legitimacy on energy dominance.
The strikes achieved what sanctions alone had struggled to do.
They physically destroyed the revenue streams that funded the Kremlin's war machine, turning Russia's greatest natural asset into a vulnerability that it could not defend.
Defending these vast infrastructure networks proved impossible.
Because Ukraine had systematically blinded Russia's air defense grid, the security service of Ukraine's elite Alpha unit reported in early 2026 that its operators had destroyed approximately $4 billion worth of Russian air defense systems over the previous 12 months. This campaign specifically targeted the sophisticated radars and command vehicles of the S-300, S-400 and Buk systems, leaving entire sectors of Russian airspace wide open to penetration. Without these eyes, the Kremlin was forced to pull air defense assets back from the front lines to protect Moscow and Putin's personal residences, leaving refineries, ammunition depots and airfields in the periphery exposed to relentless attrition. The degradation of Russia's high-tech defenses exposed a critical weakness in its alliance with suppliers like Iran and North Korea. While Tehran and Pyongyang could provide thousands of Shahed drones and millions of artillery shells, they could not replace the complex phased array radars or advanced interceptor missiles that Ukraine was destroying. Russian commanders found themselves fighting a 21st century air war with a mix of foreign low-tech munitions and increasingly blind domestic systems. At the same time, Ukraine integrated Western intelligence with its own rapidly evolving drone production.
The result was a widening technological gap in which Ukrainian strikes became more precise and damaging.
Russian retaliation increasingly relied on sheer volume and terror rather than on military effectiveness. Nowhere was this gap more visible than in the disparate economic futures facing the two combatants as they entered the fourth year of full-scale war. On January 19, 2026, the International Monetary Fund slashed its growth forecast for Russia to a mere 0.8%, a figure that signaled stagnation bordering on recession.
Russian business leaders, speaking anonymously to financial outlets, described a new operating reality they called tactical poverty.
A survival strategy involving frozen wages, cancelled bonuses, and the stripping of assets just to stay afloat. Heavy spending on the military-industrial complex, which had artificially boosted GDP in 2024 and 2025, had finally overheated the economy, leading to a labour crisis that no amount of money printing could solve.
The labour shortage became especially severe nationwide.
The military kept consuming the civilian workforce relentlessly. This was done to replace staggering frontline losses. Unemployment hit record lows, but not from economic growth. Millions of men were dead, wounded, or fighting in Ukraine. Factories struggled to find welders, engineers, and drivers. The textile and construction sectors depended heavily on migrant labour.
Those sectors collapsed as foreign workers avoided Russia.
The ruble plunged, and fears of conscription drove them away. This internal decay created a destructive feedback loop. The economy shrank because it lacked available workers. The military lacked equipment because production failed.
Meanwhile, war costs continued devouring the national budget.
In sharp contrast, Ukraine's defense industry surged rapidly. Growth was driven by investment and technology transfers. By early 2026, manufacturers went beyond simple drone assembly. They began innovating entirely new weapon classes. These systems merged Western sensors with local airframes.
The Peklo missile drone entered mass production in late 2025.
It could fly 700 kilometers at high speed. It offered a cost-effective alternative to cruise missiles. These weapons could be launched in coordinated swarms. Domestic capacity reduced reliance on foreign political decisions. Ukraine gained strategic autonomy for long-range strikes. Targets deep inside Russia could be hit when needed.
The strategic paralysis of the Russian leadership
became evident in its inability to formulate a response to these deep strikes. For months, Putin had threatened red lines regarding attacks on Russian soil. Yet when Ukraine systematically dismantled its oil industry and sank its submarines in their home ports, the Kremlin's reaction was mute. There were no massive escalations because Russia had already exhausted its conventional escalation options. It was already firing every missile it could produce and deploying every soldier it could mobilize. This silence was noticed not just in Washington and Brussels, but also in Beijing and New Delhi, where the perception of Russian military power shifted from a near-peer competitor to a hollowed-out regional spoiler. As winter turned to spring in 2026, the cumulative weight of these naval, economic, and industrial failures began to fracture the social contract within Russia itself. Regional governors, squeezed by federal demands to fund volunteer battalions while their local tax bases evaporated. It began to quietly push back against Moscow's directives. In the ethnic republics, where the ratio of coffins returning from the front was highest, underground anti-war movements like Atesh found fertile ground for recruitment, facilitating the sabotage of railway lines and recruitment centers. The war had come home not just in the form of drone explosions, but in the slow, grinding disintegration of daily life, stripping away the illusion of stability that the Putin regime had maintained for 2 decades.
The maritime domain, however, remained the most potent symbol of this shift.
The Black Sea, once a Russian lake, had become a chaotic no man's land where the Russian Navy dared not sail. Ukrainian operators, sitting in secure bunkers hundreds of miles away, hunted billion-dollar warships with plastic drones that cost less than a luxury car, enforcing a blockade on the blockaders. This was no longer a contest of tonnage or hull numbers. It was a war of calculation, and the math was mercilessly clear. Russia could not build ships as fast as Ukraine could build the drones that sank them. Ultimately, the story of early 2026 was one of a great power losing its ability to dictate events. Russia remained dangerous, capable of inflicting immense pain and destruction, but it had lost the initiative and the capacity to achieve its strategic goals. Ukraine, battered but technologically ascendant, had proven that a smaller nation armed with ingenuity and resolve could not only survive against a giant, but could systematically dismantle the giant's ability to wage war. The conflict had transformed from a defense of territory into a comprehensive dissection of the Russian state's military, economic, and political foundations.
The land war has become a grim calculus of attrition.
The naval war has evolved into something entirely different. It is a systematic dismantling of Russian naval power. By early 2026, the Black Sea Fleet had ceased functioning. It was reduced to hiding in distant, safer ports. Satellite imagery confirmed the bulk of the combatants had fled. They abandoned Sevastopol and increasingly the port of Novorossiysk. Ships scattered south toward the smaller base at Okhotsk. This was not a strategic redeployment by Russian commanders. It was a desperate flight from Ukrainian unmanned fleets. Ukraine has fundamentally rewritten the rules of maritime engagement.
The latest generation of Sea Baby drones drives this transformation.
This platform has outgrown its origins as a kamikaze vessel. Ukrainian officials revealed these drones now possess an incredible range. They can strike targets anywhere in the Black Sea basin. These systems are no longer simple single-use weapons. They are reusable platforms equipped with air-to-air missiles. Russian helicopters formerly hunted naval drones with relative impunity. Now they face a lethal threat from the water. Ukrainian operators utilize sophisticated friend or foe identification systems. These upgrades have neutralized Russia's primary aerial countermeasure.
The psychological turning point occurred during December 2025.
A Ukrainian underwater drone penetrated the defenses of Novorossiysk harbor. The strike targeted a submarine berthed at a secure pier. Russian commanders had considered this pier their safest location. The attack caused critical damage, preventing deployment. This strike carried catastrophic implications for the Kremlin leadership. No hull in the Black Sea was truly secure. Russian sortie rates dropped to near zero following this. Control of the sea passed to Ukrainian commercial shipping.
This naval victory has had profound economic consequences.
It secured the grain corridor that Russia tried to strangle. Commercial traffic returned to near pre-war levels by January. Western warships did not protect these commercial vessels. The deterrent threat of Ukrainian drones provided the protection. International insurers began to lower rates for entering the zone. The Russian Navy was too paralyzed to enforce a blockade. Russian oil tankers now faced a gauntlet of risk. They faced higher insurance costs and constant drone threats.
The war extended deep into Russia's energy heartland.
Ukrainian drones executed record strikes against Russian oil refineries. These attacks hit facilities as far as the Ural Mountains. Operations were carefully planned to hit specific distillation towers. These components are the most difficult and expensive to replace. Russia's oil refining capacity was reduced by 40%. The world's second largest exporter was forced to import fuel. Moscow quietly signed agreements to import gasoline from Belarus. This was a humiliation for a supposed energy superpower.
The realities of war arrived at the Russian gas pump.
Shortages of fuel spread to major cities by early 2026. Inflation is rising faster than the central bank can control. The strikes physically destroyed revenue streams funding the war. Sanctions alone had struggled to achieve this outcome. Ukraine turned Russia's greatest asset into a defenseless vulnerability. Defending these infrastructure networks proved impossible for Russia. Ukraine has systematically blinded Russia's air defense grid. Operators destroyed $4 billion in Russian systems.
The campaign targeted sophisticated radars and command vehicles.
Entire sectors of Russian airspace were left wide open. The Kremlin pulled air defenses back to protect Moscow. Refineries in the periphery were left exposed to attrition. The destruction of these eyes leaves the sky open. Russian commanders fight with a mix of low-tech munitions. They rely on volume rather than military effectiveness. A widening technological gap defines the current phase of the conflict.
Ukrainian strikes became more precise and damaging over time.
Russian retaliation relied increasingly on sheer volume and terror. The economic futures of the two combatants are diverging. The International Monetary Fund slashed Russia's growth forecast. The figure signaled stagnation on the verge of a recession. Russian business leaders described a new reality of tactical poverty. This survival strategy involved frozen wages and cancelled bonuses.
The military complex has overheated the staggering national economy.
A labor crisis exists that printing money cannot solve. The military cannibalized the civilian workforce to replace losses. Unemployment is at record lows due to mass mobilization. Factories struggle to find welders, engineers, and drivers. The textile and construction sectors have effectively collapsed. Migrant labor fled Russia due to the plummeting ruble. Foreign workers also feared forced conscription.
The economy shrank because it lacked the necessary workers.
The military lacked equipment because the economy could not produce. Ukraine's defense industry was entering a period of explosive growth. Direct investment and technology transfers fueled this expansion. Ukrainian manufacturers were innovating new classes of weapons. They merged Western sensors with locally produced airframes. The Peklo missile drone entered mass production in late 2025. This gave Kyiv a cost-effective alternative to cruise missiles.
Domestic capacity meant Ukraine was no longer solely dependent.
They possessed the strategic autonomy to hit deep targets. The Russian leadership displayed paralysis in the face of these deep strikes. Putin had threatened red lines regarding attacks on Russian soil. Ukraine systematically dismantled its oil industry without consequence. There were no major escalations because options had been exhausted. Russia was already firing every missile it could produce. It was deploying every soldier it could mobilize.
This silence was noted in capitals across the world.
The perception of Russian military power has degraded significantly. It is now viewed as a hollowed-out regional spoiler. The cumulative weight of failure fractured the social contract. Regional governors began to quietly push back against Moscow. They were squeezed by demands to fund volunteer battalions. Local tax bases evaporated while federal demands increased. Underground anti-war movements found fertile ground for recruitment. The sabotage of railway lines became increasingly common. The war came home in the disintegration of daily life. The illusion of stability has been stripped away.
The maritime domain remained the most potent symbol.
The Black Sea has become a chaotic no-man's land. Ukrainian operators hunt warships with cheap plastic drones. Russia cannot build ships fast enough to replace those Ukraine sinks. This was no longer a contest of tonnage or hull numbers.
It was a war of calculation and merciless math.
The story of early 2026 is one of lost control. Russia remained dangerous but lost the ability to dictate events. Ukraine proved that a smaller nation can survive. Ingenuity and resolve have dismantled the giant's war machine. The conflict transformed into a dissection of the Russian state. Its military, economic, and political foundations are crumbling. The Russian Navy has been forced to retreat. Its economy is crumbling under relentless drone strikes. Its air defenses are being systematically blinded by precision fire. The Kremlin is left with no good options.
What happens when a superpower realizes its arsenal is useless?
Can nuclear weapons stop a swarm of cheap plastic drones?
Share your thoughts and subscribe to the channel.